The season is officially here. KU takes on Green Bay in their season opener. Darren Peterson back? Question mark.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we are previewing and breaking down KU's season opener for the Jayhawks against Green Bay and Doug Gottlieb. We'll get into our players to watch for both teams, get into our Green Bay scouting report and keys for KU to, in a game like this, not just win, but win handily and I guess cover the spread, so to speak. Today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Game Time. And with Game Time, you can get tickets to the KU game against Green Bay. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So KU takes on Green Bay, a little Monday night basketball action for KU to kick off the season for the Jayhawks. And I think, now it just all kind of counts. Like, from a perspective of trying to learn about how good is this team and, where is everybody in terms of their level of play. Honestly, the Louisville game, probably going to be a better indicator for some of those things. Still an exhibition and still doing some, creative or different things with your rotations and lineups and who's playing and how long people are playing. So that's definitely true. But just in terms of the competition you're going up against, that one probably a better, indicator than this. This one is a better indicator, though, in terms of nailing down that actual rotation. Like in maybe some of the early games, if Jamari McDowell's playing 22 minutes, is he going to play 22 minutes again tonight? I don't really think so, but this will be a better indication of what the actual rotation is. Now, if you blow them out like you're supposed to, then it's still not going to be fully that way. You'll still be able to experiment at least a little bit. But now it all does count. It counts to the stats. It counts to the record book. And so, this is where things kind of get real for KU. And obviously, the big question coming into the game is Darren Peterson going to play for KU? Well, earlier at Bill Self's press conference, I think this was back on Friday, he said, Bill Self anyway, that Peterson practiced full speed. He kind of went on to say he's not 100% yet, which is certainly weird given that it had at that point been a week since the Louisville game. Like, still not fully up to speed. Again, it just makes me wonder, is this more than the cramping, or is it just about really bad sickness or whatever it is? But point being, they expect him to play and be 100% and everything like that. So, or not be 100%, but to fully participate in all that stuff. And, this is the beginning of the Darren Peterson era, so to speak, for KU. I don't know. Can you get an era if you're only supposed to be here for 1 year, right? But this is when it's real for him as well. And the charge to winning a National Player of the Year, so to speak, for Darren Peterson is there. So I'm fully expecting him to play, and that kind of adds the intrigue to the game. I know, everything becomes this is Darren Peterson's first game. This is the first time we see him in a KU uniform at late night in the fog. This is his first game when he's playing at Louisville and putting up 24 points in the first half. But this is really his first game because this is the one that counts. And also that Louisville game, it was on the road. And the Allen Fieldhouse late night in the fog event was a scrimmage. So this is actually the first time he'll do it in a KU uniform in front of KU fans. So that certainly adds, to the debut here for Peterson, and obviously expecting big things. Who's going to start for KU in this game? Certainly a question coming into it because, I would assume it's going to be the same starting lineup they threw out in the two exhibition games. If that was the assessment through all the practices that Bill Self got to, that this is our starting five, I don't think two exhibition games are going to completely change that or alter that. At the same point in time, we saw last year, Diggy Coit played good enough for KU in the second exhibition game that it earned him a starting spot on opening night for KU, I believe. So it is entirely possible that the guy this time would be Bryson Tiller. Bryson Tiller was so good in exhibition season for KU. Would you think about starting him? Now, the difference is with Tiller, it's a little bit of it becomes a question of fit, not Tiller can play next to Flory. That's not the question of fit I have. It's more of the question of if you're bringing Tiller next to Flory and then Trey White is now the 3, do you have enough shooting with Council, White, and Tiller to play 2 through 4 next to Peterson and Flory at the 1 and 5? That kind of becomes the big question there. We're going to see the 2 big lineups of Tiller next to Flory, and I'm cool with that because I actually like that lineup. I like the versatility of both those bigs. But I think when that big lineup is out there, I think if you are playing Tiller next to Flory, it has to be with one of Cole Rosario or Jaden Dawson at the 3, if not them at the 2 and the 3, just to maximize the shooting out there when they are out there. I think that's kind of the thing with that. Now, as far as the starters, like I said, maybe they do opt to go with Tiller. Do they give Jaden Dawson a shot? I don't think we saw enough there in exhibition plays. He was kind of working back from the injury, but maybe he eventually is there. I'm just kind of expecting it's going to still be Rosario as the 5th starter there, but it becomes more of a conversation if it's the continued struggle, especially with your next game being a big one at North Carolina, if it's a continued struggle tonight. And that's why I want to see Cole Rosario, have a breakout game. Go hit 3 threes, boost your confidence, and make him, make Bill Self, make everybody kind of feel good about you being that 5th starter. What is the actual rotation now, though, right? I mean, if we go back to the idea that I think once we get to, later in Big 12 play or the key important games, it's really going to be a 7-man rotation where the 8th man is maybe playing 5 to 10 minutes. That's what Bill Self does when it gets to the point of like, okay, we just got to trust these guys. I think in a lot of conference play, it's an 8-man rotation, and the 9th man is kind of the one getting spot minutes. But I think at this point in the season, it's more of a 9 or 10-man rotation where a 10th or 11th man is getting spot minutes because you are trying to, expand the minutes more, get guys playing time that if you're up big, you have an opportunity to get them on the court and give guys, kind of a trial run to see, do you deserve more minutes or something like that. So what is the actual rotation now? It's not going to be exact in this game. Like the North Carolina game will give a better idea of who's highest on the Bill Self trust tree. But this one will at least, be a little bit closer, I think, to the rotation than those first few exhibitions were. Certainly you would think, if you're looking at who's on the borderline of, are they going to be in the rotation or not, like guys to watch? I think Jaden Dawson will be in the rotation, but I guess that is kind of one to watch because if you are looking at it as, okay, you have the starting 5, you have Marco, and then you have Bryson Tiller, that's a clear 7. So then your 8th man kind of becomes in question. But I do think Dawson part of the rotation. The question would be Paul Mbiya as well. Like, is he just going to be an emergency big man, or has he done enough to where you do want to expand out the rotation an extra man to play both Mbiya and it's funny coming in, we were like, maybe it'll only be just, one really backup big, but both have played well and looked good enough that it's like you want to find minutes for both of your backup bigs with Tiller and Mbiya if you're KU. But yeah, I think this is, in terms of the players, this is most important for Cole Rosario, Jaden Dawson, and Flory Bidunga. I think those are the players that have the biggest riding on this game, that is, we're going to forget about it in a couple months. But like, I think when you're looking at Cole Rosario, again, just trying to have that kind of confidence booster in a way, this presents a big opportunity, especially knowing North Carolina's next and all the gnarly games KU has on their non-conference schedule. I think it's a similar question for Jaden Dawson coming back from the injury. And because Cole Rosario has probably left the door open a little bit here, it's a big game for Jaden Dawson. If he performs at a high level, maybe he can, kind of usurp him in a way. And then the last piece of the puzzle there is Flory. Flory's coming off a game where he wasn't very good against Forte State. And there's big expectations for him to break out and have a, all Big 12 level season as a sophomore. Well, go do it in this game and we saw some of the big moments of Flory against Louisville, but then he just got in foul trouble. Like, go put it all together in this game in the same way of just like, building that positive momentum forward. So now's when it matters. I think from a standpoint of seeing the more real minutes, real rotations, it could still be a little bit wonky, but this is another data point and one that's going to kind of give us more insight on what Bill Self is seeing out there for KU. We'll break down the game after the game late into your Monday night. Let's continue on, though. Green Bay scouting report next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by Game Time. College basketball is back. I don't know how you couldn't be more excited, whether it's, pre-gaming with friends, going to the game, whether it's the after the games where you're just sitting around reminiscing on what you saw, the rivalry, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. They have zone deals too. Do you know what zone deals are? Well, zone deals, you basically just pick the section. Like if you're not great at making decisions, which sometimes I can be that way, you pick the section. Game Time is going to pick the seats for you, so you don't have to make that decision. And you save big too. So you're not having to make that big decision. You just pick your section. That's the decision you need, and it's going to save you money. It's a pretty good deal to me. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets or college basketball tickets or NBA, NHL, whatever's going on right now. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And you can check out Locked On College Basketball to get you ready for the full slate of college basketball games as well for your second listen every day. All right, so Green Bay comes in. Their head coach is Doug Gottlieb. They were not good in year one, 4-28 in the first year. And a little history lesson for, the younger crowd that doesn't know. So Doug Gottlieb was a player at Oklahoma State. And Doug Gottlieb, the famous moment is he comes into the game when he's in Allen Fieldhouse and his shorts are on backwards. And the crowd starts chanting, "Shorts on backwards." And so it would be very funny. Like, I don't know if there's any KU students or current KU, listening to this. If you could get going a shorts on backwards chant, chef's kiss for that, if you could do that to kind of razz Doug Gottlieb in this one. But it was not a good year one for them. And now they come into this year 324th on KenPom with a number 306 offense and number 328 defense. Mark Torvik's much higher on him, though. He has him at 257th. And then Under Basket Review picked them 10th of the 11 teams in the Horizon League. So kind of lower expectations. I do think they could exceed those expectations after diving into them a little bit because they brought in a lot of older talent from the JUCO level, from D2s, D3s, which honestly has been having a lot of success. And they played two exhibition games. The second one was against a non-D1 school that I wasn't really familiar with. But the first one they played against was Bradley. And Bradley is a solid opponent. They've been a solid team out of the Missouri Valley, and they're expected to be good again. I think Bradley's ranked like 106th or something on KenPom. Yeah, 106th on KenPom coming into the year. So, Bradley's a solid team. And they only lost that game 83-78. So, that showed out pretty well. And then they won the other one 75-48 against St. Norbert, which St. Norbert went 2 of 20 from 3. Green Bay was 9 of 16 from 3. You're playing a lesser opponent. That's certainly something that sticks out. You had 8 blocks. I don't envision they're going to have 8 blocks against Kansas. But, the first one is the more important one with the Bradley one. So 4 strengths for Green Bay. First, they were top 6 nationally last year getting to the free throw line, and they also converted them at a really high clip, 78.5% at the free throw line. That was top 20 nationally. That did not carry over into the St. Norbert game. It did carry over into the Bradley game. They were 24 of 26 at the free throw line against Bradley. So that's going to be interesting, especially we think back to Flory Bidunga getting in foul trouble against Louisville, and that's kind of a question for him coming into the year. Well, you have a team who gets the free throw line a lot and is going to get your bigs in foul trouble. So can he defend without fouling? They're definitely an older team. I would give that as a strength for them, and definitely bigger than they were last year. But they really hit the portal hard from the D2, D3, JUCO levels. They even added a 29-year-old. Yes, they have a 29-year-old on the roster. Now, I will say, unlike, some guys who have been in college just working the system, or maybe this was a little different. His name is Ramel Bethea. He was in the Navy. I think he went into the Navy, not the college, the Navy, the actual Navy, like right out of high school, and he was in that for a while, and then he gets out of it. And I don't know why this guy wasn't hooping to begin with. 6'9" with a 7'4" wingspan. That is incredible. Why was he not on a scholarship right out of college? But anyway, so he's not your normal, oh, you're just, taking advantage of the system. Like, he actually is like, oh, good for you. Like, you got out, and now you're probably, I don't know, maybe making a little NIL money. I don't know how it works at some of the lower schools, but they scored 17 fast break points against Bradley. So I would give that another strength, possibly, that they could be a fast transition scoring team. Certainly something to keep an eye on. And then I would say the last strength here, really analytically strong shot chart against Bradley. And that was kind of the case last year too. Like, they don't take a ton in the mid-range. It's basically like all paint, free throws, and three-pointers, which is like analytically very strong. Last year they were 89th percentile in three-point attempt rate. They just didn't make them at a very high rate. They just didn't have the skill for it. But I think the process was actually okay with some of the shooting stuff there. 4 weaknesses here. They lost Anthony Roy. He was averaging 25 points per game in 11 games before he got suspended. Former NAIA product, which again, like a lot of NAIA kids came up this year and are already having success through exhibition season. Roy already having success. Now he's at Oklahoma State, where he looked pretty good. So losing that player, I mean, he would have been one of those guys that could have came in Allen Fieldhouse and, put up 20, 25, 30 points and tried to keep him close. Bradley in that exhibition game, here's another weakness, shot 71% at the rim. So if that's what Bradley did, what is Kansas going to have the opportunity to do with even more size and athleticism? Also, Green Bay finished in just the 2nd percentile nationally. That's not the side of that you want to be on. That means only 1% of college basketball was worse than you. 2nd% nationally in Hakeem rate last year. What is Hakeem rate? It's a combination of steal plus block rate. Basically, how often is your defense causing chaotic plays, or how often is your defense, making a play, essentially, is what that boils down to, a steal or a block. Well, the best defenses, usually that number's higher. They were in the 2nd percentile last year. Now, some different personnel, some guys who are back, but that's certainly something to keep an eye on. And then the other weakness for them, they were 16th percentile last season in turnover rate a year ago. They turned the ball over way too much. Again, some different personnel, new players this year, some other returners, but that'll be kind of something interesting, because when you look at Kansas being a team who didn't really force a lot of turnovers in that Fort Hays State game, but they have the personnel and the athleticism that they should be forcing more turnovers. Maybe that's something they can do against Green Bay. If they don't, it might be a little worrisome that you'd be doing it in back-to-back games. All right, players to watch. For KU, you're not going to believe who I'm going to pick. Darryn Peterson. Who? No, Darren Peterson is our player to watch here. Coming off a game that he missed against Fort Hays State. Are they finally going to have the jerseys for sale? That'll be interesting. Anyway, that's a subplot. But Peterson is coming off a game which he missed, and he is in the driver's seat to be KU's best player. And this is the start of what I think is going to be a really special season for him, right? As long as he can avoid more injury and more missing games, this could be really special. And this is kind of the start of that. And, now it's for real. I know the Louisville game was kind of for real in certain aspects. But this is when the stats start counting, and this is the first time he's playing a real game in front of the fans at Allen Fieldhouse. Darren Peterson's the guy to watch, and he's going to be the guy to watch all season long for KU. He's a really good player, right? So let's just go with the obvious one right off the bat. For Green Bay, we're going to go with Marcus Hall. He is a 6'6" junior forward. Plays a lot on the wing, plays a lot of 4 for them, honestly. 14 points, 4 rebounds, and over 2 assists per game a season ago. He did it on 42% from the field, 37% from 3. So good player there. And then in that exhibition game against Bradley that we've been referencing, he dropped the team high 15 points. He did it on 5 of 10 from the floor. He'll be something interesting. And as KU, that's a big matchup for Trey White, right? As we kind of look at this season, KU doesn't have a ton of traditional wings. I think where that starts to, impact you is you wonder, when you're playing other teams who have a bunch of wings, how do you match up? How do you defend those guys? Well, I think this is going to be the first test for Trey White against a solid player in Marcus Hall. And so I think that'll be really interesting, because he's somebody who can, he's 6'6", kind of lengthy wing, who can get a shot up. I want to see how KU kind of defends that. And for Marcus Hall, like if they're going to come in and spook KU or keep this closer than the experts think, so to speak, Marcus Hall's probably going to have a big game. All right, let's continue on with our keys for KU to avoid that from happening, to win at a comfortable distance. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. You know what else is back? college basketball, and you can bet on that too with FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to just ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score the next point to who's going to make that fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. You can give it futures for the season, and that can be, you can get futures during the season, right? If you want to make a bet on Kansas against Arizona in college football this week, you can do that. If you want to bet on Kansas to win the national championship in basketball at 22-1, you can do that. If you want to bet on Darren Peterson to win the Wooden Award, I was saying all offseason how you could get it at 10-1. Then I was saying last week it was 9-1. Well, now it's plus 750. So you are missing the train right now, but that still might be pretty decent odds for Darren Peterson, actually plus 700 now over on FanDuel. So you can check that out and plenty more over on FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Again, check out Locked On College Basketball for your second listen every day. You can also check out Locked On College Football for your third listen every day and kind of catch up on everything that's going on over on the football side of things. Is I think the first college football playoff rankings are coming out this week. So KU is 28.5 point favorites over on FanDuel over Green Bay. The over-under is 150.5. So they're expecting a big kind of blowout here. I don't know. Again, if I think Green Bay is going to be better than some of those metrics say, that does seem like a lot of points, especially for a Kansas team that, how much half-court scoring are they going to have outside of Darren Peterson? Like this game, they should be fine. So I don't know. I probably wouldn't be touching that if I'm being completely honest. I actually do kind of like the over there, though, right? I think Kansas is going to be able to get out in transition. I think Green Bay at times has shown they want to run. If Green Bay's getting to the foul line, that's stopping the clock and putting up points. So that would be the play that I would go with. Here's the keys to the game, though. Let's start with the KU offense. Among players that played double-digit minutes for Green Bay against Bradley, only Ramel Bethea, who we mentioned, 6'9", 7'4" wingspan. He was the only one. He was at 12 minutes, so it wasn't even 30 minutes, who was taller than 6'6", so 6'7" or taller. They do have a 7-footer, Marwan Cicic, but he only got 2 minutes in that game. So this is the key for the KU offense. Pound it in the paint, right? And that comes in a multitude of ways for KU, right? It comes in attacking on the occasional post-up. This isn't going to be a huge post-up team, but the occasional post-up, dribble drives, it's going to come from, throwing alley-oops, throwing lobs to your big men, trying to just get them good angles. Take advantage of your size in this game. And it also comes from a rebounding perspective. And I think when I look at the offensive rebounding specifically, right? Last season, Green Bay was in the 20th percentile in defensive rebound rate. So that's not very good. They allowed Bradley to have 12 offensive rebounds in that exhibition. This should be a game where Flory Bidunga has double-digit rebounds, and he should have 3 or 4 offensive rebounds. If Paul Mbiya plays, he should have 1 or 2 offensive rebounds, more limited by minutes there. Bryson Tiller should grab an offensive rebound or 2. Trey White should grab one, right? This should be a game where KU dominates on the glass and with their size down low. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the key for KU's defense is defend without fouling. Like we mentioned, Green Bay will get to the free throw line a lot. They did it last year, and when they did, they converted them at a very, very high clip. And that's what they showed in the Bradley game. They got to the free throw line 26 times, and they made 24 of them. That's how you let them kind of hang around in this game. And then it gets, tenfold to a certain point because of KU's big depth, or I guess lack thereof, because you only have 3 bigs. And so if they're getting you in foul trouble, it's not just the free throws and the way they convert them. It's that your bigs are getting in foul trouble in a way that you can't really afford to have. So I do wonder, like hypothetically, in a world where in any game where all 3 KU bigs were in foul trouble in some way, who would be the emergency 5? Would it be Justin Cross, the walk-on, or would they throw out Samis Calderon as kind of a backup 5? Or would they just be like, we're going to play ultra small and play Trey White at the 5, and Darren Peterson will basically be defending 4s? And I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. I hope it's not something we find out ever this season. That's not something you want to have to know. But I am just kind of at least a little curious of what that would be for KU. So defend without fouling. And that'll be a big thing too, with going back to the offensive rebounding, like taking advantage of the size without being overly aggressive, right? Avoiding those over the back calls or those fouls that are going to, cost you from playing later in the game. Our player matchup here is LeBron versus Melvin Council. They have a LeBron Thomas is their point guard. He was a really good JUCO player, like first team All-American at the JUCO level. He put up 11 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and he had a team high plus 11 for Green Bay in their exhibition against Bradley. He's going to be going up against Melvin Council, I would imagine. Maybe Peterson gets him some, but Council is going to be KU's primary defender, and so I think that makes sense to put on him and kind of cut off the head of the snake, so to speak. And Council really shut down Mikel Brown. It was eye-opening to see what Brown did in his second exhibition game versus what he did versus Kansas. I mean, some of that maybe you're just having an off night, but I think a big reason you're having an off night is Melvin Council. I think Davion Mitchell, the former Baylor guard who's now in the NBA, I think his nickname is Off Night, right? Because it's like the guy he's guarding is having an off night. Maybe that ends up being Melvin Council this year for KU. So I think that's going to be a really fun matchup between the two guys. And for Council, he was a former JUCO player too, who's turned into a lot of success. So Council is also, I mean, it's not just the defensive side. He's quickly becoming really important for the KU offense as well with his ability to drive in transition, drive overall. Again, KU doesn't have seemingly a ton of options outside of Darren Peterson for scoring in the half court, at least right now. Maybe it just wasn't shown in the exhibition. But Council is one of those guys who can at least get his shot a little bit here. It's not always going to be the most efficient. We saw that in the Louisville game. It was certainly in the second game. But he's just going to be a very important player for KU this year. But I also think it's a very important matchup. All right, Hawks to Soar. KU players we think can have a big game. I mean, in general, if you're going to cover the spread and win by 30, it's probably going to be a lot of players, if not like everyone, right? I would say Darren Peterson would be the first, but that's just because I would almost say that with every matchup. But certainly you think Darren Peterson's going to have a big game here, and he's had some time to rest between games too. And then I would say the KU centers. Going back to that size advantage you have. They have the one guy with the 7'4" wingspan, but outside of that, not a ton of guys are playing in that rotation who are huge. Now, maybe they do throw some of those guys who aren't playing a ton but are big just for a few minutes here just to try to weather the storm a little bit more than they normally would in a game. This is a game the big men should feast. And it's not necessarily just going to be a points thing, but it is absolutely something where it's like they should be grabbing like a bunch of rebounds. They should be getting blocks. They should be impacting the game on the defensive end. And just with their size down low, whether it's, forcing a double team that maybe they can pass out of. And who knows, if Green Bay, because they are smaller, you would think that's going to mean more double teams. That means it's going to be an important passing game for the big men. And that's something you wonder, okay, what can Flory do there? What can Paul Mbiya do there? What can Bryson Tiller do there? Does that mean it's a good Bryson Tiller matchup because he's the most versatile offensively? And so if he is getting doubled, he can probably do the most out of it for KU. So I think the KU centers should be able to have a solid game. And I don't know, it might be a little worrisome if they don't in this matchup, but it should be a fun one because it is the season opener. We will be breaking down whatever happens with our postcast after the game late Monday night. That'll do it for this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. See you next time.